Hey guys, welcome to Conversations with John Thomas. This is my friend Josh Hoffert from Streams Canada, and we've been having some really interesting conversations on children, night terrors, and dreams. And if you didn't see the last episode, you definitely want to go to the archives and check that out. But we're just going to continue in that vein a little bit. You know, Josh, your wife has done some studies, some college study, university study in psychology and some of the stuff that happens in the dreams. Tell us, you were saying something about what happens in sleeping while we're sleeping in the brain. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when my wife was finishing her degree, she finished a bachelor's in psychology, and she was doing a number of brain development courses. So she'd have all these stacks of books writing her papers, and she wrote papers on dreams and stuff like that. And I would just tell her, don't take those back to the library. I want to study that stuff, because like we were talking about with the kids and the dreams have been so integral to our children's lives, to my life, to my wife's life, and I wanted to understand it more, so I'd start studying through these things. And what happens physiologically in your body and in your brain specifically as it pertains to dreams it's fascinating when you think of it through the lens that God is the one who had a say in your physiological makeup. Right. He created your body, right? He created Adam and Eve, and he created their bodies, and he created them to function in a specific way. And so one of the things that happens as your body goes through the stages of sleep, you reach stage 4, the deepest stage of sleep. The richest stages of dreaming are right when you fall asleep, and the deepest stage of sleep. So that's stage 4, rapid eye movement, REM sleep. Yeah. We learned about that when we're growing up. So in stage 4 sleep, the two chemicals responsible for your waking thought life and your conscious judgments and decisions totally recede from your brain. They're acetylcholine and norepinephrine. Those chemicals are non-existent in your brain at the deepest stage of sleep.
Try spelling those.
Yeah, I couldn't even spell those. I practiced saying those.
I imagine
so. And then at that deepest stage, the chemicals that flood into your brain are the chemicals responsible for base desires, fight or flight. Actually, the base of your skull, the base of your brain is what's generally active during the deepest stage of sleep. And so base desires, fight or flight instincts, those types of things are totally turned on during the deepest stage, one of the richest dreaming portions of sleep. Right. So I find it fascinating that when you look at that through God, Jesus says, "Judge not lest you be judged," or he says things like, and again he moves on and he says, "Remove the eye from your, or the speck from your own eye before you go help your brother remove the speck from his eye." You know, that whole thing. God designs this portion of your life, which is, we'll get into this more, but a significant portion of your life.
Right.
Where your ability to judge and think consciously and make decisions is totally turned off. Yeah. And your ability to engage the deepest desires that you have, your instinctual responses to things, is totally turned on. We happen to call it sleep.
Yeah.
What was God thinking when he created that physiologically in your brain to respond to him, to respond to the dreams that he was going to give you?
Yeah, it's so amazing. So, because the average person, medical doctors have shown that the average person needs 8 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. We think that we can get away with less, but the reality is it actually removes our life expectancy. Right. The less you sleep, average person needs 8 hours of sleep. And so with 8 hours of sleep, that's a third of your life.
Yeah.
Now, if you get to 60 years old, 20 years you've just spent sleeping. Rip Van Winkle is not so far away. 20 years that what happens in our lives, what's happening in our spirits, what's happening in our souls. It's astounding. You were saying something about instincts and animals and dreams. Tell us about that, because that ties into this.
One of the studies that was done was how animals respond to their dreams, to try and understand what is a dream and what is it doing and all of that. So one of the things that was done was the control center for the brain of certain animals was removed or hindered. So there's a portion of your brain that tells your body not to move when you're dreaming. So when you have sleeping when you're sleepwalking. When you're sleepwalking, that kind of stuff isn't happening. So there's a portion of your brain that tells your body not to move anymore. So they totally removed those portions of the brain and it was cats that they were doing this experiment on. And what happened was cats would have their dreams and they would act out instinctual hunting patterns and stalking prey and things like that while they were sleeping. And so the theory began to develop that what an animal was doing when it was sleeping and dreaming was pre-learning, basically, natural instincts, natural behaviors. And it was practicing things so that when it actually did those things, it would be better at doing those things. Right. That was the theory, and a largely believed theory, that dreams accomplish teaching you.
Right. Now, what's interesting, because there's been some things that have been done, and some of it's kind of new age. I wouldn't suggest people try to go this direction, but it's interesting for information where people have done some study on, my mind just went completely blank. I am not lucid at the moment, and lucid is the word that I was looking for. Yeah. So some studies on lucid dreaming where you can actually cause yourself to go into lucid dreaming and actually choose what you're going to dream about. And again, that's not a good thing to do. When you're forcing yourself into that arena, you're in control, God's not in control. So you're not going to get as much fruit out of it, and you're missing the opportunity for God to say something. Right. So all that being said, I'm not suggesting that anybody does this or it's a good idea. I'm just showing what has been done, where people will actually put themselves into lucid dreaming and into particular dreams where they practice something that they want to grow in, and they found that the skill level grows the same by practicing it in a dream as it does by practicing it in waking life. Now, muscle tone does not, muscle memory doesn't, but the skill level grows in the same way that you're actually teaching yourself in dreams.
Right.
And now this gets really, really interesting if you tie this in, and two places I'd like to go. One, Ephesians chapter 5, and I'll hit that. And then the other one is the amount of dream that children have in the womb. Yeah. So let me do the Ephesians 5 thing, and then we'll hit that piece. Because Ephesians 5, God's talking, or Paul's talking through, God's talking through Paul about a husband and a wife. And Paul gets to the end of it. He goes, guys, I'm not really talking about a man and his wife. I'm actually talking about Christ and the church. Right. But he talks about how Jesus washes his bride with the water of his word so that she will be without spot and blemish, such as she should be. And this whole thing that God actually speaks to speak identity over us, purpose over us, and draws us out of those things that are wrinkles, that are spots. So spots are shame, wrinkles are iniquity or choices. Right. He's actually removing shame, he's removing iniquity through his word by speaking identity and who we actually are. Right. And so he does that. Now he does that through scripture. He does that through all the other ways that he speaks, including dreams. One of the things that God accomplishes, and not every dream does it, but one of the things that God accomplishes in dreams is actually speaking identity and setting us free from patterns. He's speaking instincts into us.
Yeah, that's right.
He's teaching us spiritual instincts so that we respond to him, which is astounding. Now, how often, like children that are in the womb, how much do they dream?
Well, significantly so. Studies have shown that if you learn a new behavioral pattern, your dream life increases.
Say that again.
Yeah. If you learn a new behavioral pattern, you learn a new thing, whatever it is, your dream life actually increases after learning something.
So if I go out and I learn how to play tennis.
Yep.
My dream life will actually increase. And then the likelihood is I'm actually trying to teach myself what I'm learning.
Right.
Okay.
That's pretty amazing.
God is big. He's really amazing. That's so cool.
Our mutual friend, Rob Mazza, had said, God is bigger than previously thought.
Yes.
Anything I learn about dreams always convinces me of that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to children,
Yeah.
when it comes to babies in the womb, right?
Infants.
The stage of brain development for a child in the womb, every time a child sleeps, and any pregnant mom has known there's periods of inactivity and the baby's generally sleeping. Any sleep cycle the baby is in the womb is 100% REM, the stage 4 of sleep, REM sleep, so which is the richest stage of dreaming for the brain of an individual. So 100% of that sleep cycle for 9 months as the brain is developing, every time it's asleep, is REM sleep, stage 4 sleep.
Yes.
Dreaming sleep, deep dreams. And we can't tell what that child is dreaming, but we know that child has to be dreaming, because that's a stage where dreams happen. And you can track brain waves and things like that and see what's happening. And so that's what they've done, is track those kind of things. When the child is born, that drops down to about 50 to 80%, somewhere in there. So that for the first 3 years, that's kind of paring down, and then the next paring down happens over the next 15 years or so, and then your sleep cycle normalizes in your early 20s to about 20% of your sleep cycle is REM sleep, so stage 4 sleep. Wow. And so, but that first initial 3 years is a period of such rich stage 4 REM sleep. And then if you look at the development of a child's brain, this should be an indictment against everybody that's ever lived. By the time you're 3, you have more neurons in your brain than you will ever have for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life, you are constantly losing neurons. The neural pathways are just not fully formed at that point. But you have more neurons in your brain by the time you're 3 than you will ever have for the rest of your life. So there's this incredible surge of development from conception to 3 of your brain. Yeah. And it's full of dreams.
Wow.
Full of dreams.
Yes.
And so you look at some of those, extrapolating some of those studies and looking at that and what that implies in it about the development of a person's brain and their dream life is, what if we are dreaming our identity?
Yeah.
What if we're dreaming spiritual instincts? God is breathing his character and nature into a child, and that child is beginning to learn who they are based on the dreams that they have, when their ability to really think consciously about the world is totally turned off. And their ability to respond, fight or flight. Why do you think children have nightmares? Because they're scared. Fight or flight. That's the fight or flight response. So what does the enemy do in those first 3 years? I mean,
tries to establish patterns of fear.
Exactly, which becomes identity.
Which children are not naturally fearful.
Right. They're not naturally fearful. They're naturally full of wonder.
Yes.
So the enemy comes in when God is busy identifying and solidifying who that child's going to become in their dream life. The enemy comes in and goes, no, I'm going to try and take that one and still fear. And God, there's this struggle. And as parents, if we recognize that, we recognize, no, I'm going to fight for my child's destiny, because it really is them learning who they are.
Yes. Man, that is... Selah. just stop and think about that for just a minute.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, that is astounding. I mean, our God is so amazing.
I have, if we would just teach, well, like Jeremiah, when he's 16, he knows, about 16, he knows he's called to a prophet, to be a prophet, right? That's when the call of God has awakened him. What if we began teaching children at 3, at 2, at 1, at 4, to begin engaging that spiritual realm from a healthy perspective, understanding their authority, their identity, all of those types of things? Yeah. What if we could do that? What would happen in the prophetic movement if it wasn't when they're 30 that we'd finally start coming back to recognizing character and integrity and how all those things work? But if we started teaching them at 3 to step into those kind of things.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. You know, just thinking, coming back to that concept of kids in the womb, in that amount of dreaming and all the things that God could be speaking to them, that they could be encountering, that they experience. And there's this story, and I don't have a theology that fits the story, but I have a story. So I'll throw that out there and maybe explain it a little bit more. So there's a young boy that's 3 years old that has a baby sister. And baby's born, and as soon as baby's born, 3-year-old boy is trying to get mommy and daddy, I want to spend time with with little sister. Okay, well, yeah, let's sit on the couch and we'll let you. But I want to spend time with her alone. And they're thinking, 3-year-old boy, baby, not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Right, but it just continues. They thought maybe it was just kind of a thing, I want, new toy, but it continued for a couple months. And so finally they decided, okay, so this is what we'll do. We'll let him go into the room, put her in a crib. He can't get her out of the crib. We don't have to worry about dropping or anything. So, they weren't him doing something dangerous. That wasn't the concern. It's just, a child with a baby. You've got to be very careful.
Yeah.
So they were thinking, well, this would be safe, and because we're not concerned about this, and we'll just go outside of the room and let this happen. And so that's what they did. Okay, we'll give you 10 minutes, and but mommy and daddy be right outside of the room, and so the door's not completely closed, just a little bit open, and they're listening, and he walks up to his sister, and he goes, "Quick, tell me what he's like. I'm starting to forget."
Wow.
How many encounters have they had with Papa before they even come out of the womb?
Yeah.
How many encounters do they have? I mean, we've had encounters. I know you've had encounters. I know I've had encounters where the Lord has come and met us in dreams and done beautiful things. It doesn't start because we're at a certain level or because we're at a certain age. I mean, he's doing that with our children.
Yeah.
And if we can find ways to foster that and protect that and care for that and encourage that and awaken that, it will change everything in their development and in their growth. It changes the way that they interact with the world. When someone really understands the spiritual realm, it changes the way that they interact with the world around them. They see the world differently. They respond to it differently. They begin to recognize when we teach someone how to operate out of authority instead of operating out of fear. Kids don't learn, they're not born afraid. Right. Something happens to make kids afraid. There's this cartoon, it's not really old, but it's a cartoon called Tale of Despereaux.
Okay.
Cartoon movie. I love cartoon movies, but this one is really cute. It's about this mouse that has all these fantasies of saving the princess. And he's reading these fantasy stories about killing the dragon and being a knight in shining armor and all this. And then, and he lives in a castle. And so he wants to go explore and have all these adventures. And the mice are like, he's different than other mice because in school, all the other mice, like they're teaching them, they show a picture of a cat and everybody begins to cower and hides their face. And he's just like, oh, that's interesting. When everybody else is. And at one point, the headmaster of the school is talking to Despereaux's parents, and they're so concerned because he's not afraid. And everybody else is afraid. And the schoolmaster says, oh, it's okay. They're not born afraid. We need to teach them how to be afraid.
Wow, that's so true. That's so true.
And see, we don't have to teach our kids how to be afraid. No. We don't have to let the world teach it. We don't have to let the enemy teach them how to be afraid. We can actually teach them how to be in faith. Yeah. And how to trust God and how to encounter God and allow the truth that the Spirit has already spoken into their spirits come into their minds, because their spirit has received a lot more than what their souls has received. Yeah. And one of the roles of parents and one of the roles of those that have a place of authority and influence in children's life is anchoring the reality of the soul with the reality of the spirit.
Yeah, that's right.
So that there's less conflict as the children grows up, as the person grows up.
Right.
I mean, that's discipleship. That's what we're discipling people. We're discipling them into the place where the spirit is in the place of rulership, not to remove the soul, but so that the soul can actually be fully alive, because outside of the Spirit's rulership, it's unable to be fully alive. It's twisted, it's broken, it's fearful, it's all those things. And in that place, then all of a sudden, there's the fullness of life that we were promised, because the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. But I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. John chapter 10, verse 10.
Yeah.
So key.
You know, the principle that the natural things speak of the invisible, right? When we look at the placenta in the womb, that protects a baby.
Right.
And we think about that in relation to their spiritual life and their dream life and all of that kind of stuff. That only what the parent allows into the body will impact the baby negatively. Because that, I mean, a virus or a cold or bacteria, most of those things, the placenta will block those things from impacting the baby.
Yeah.
Anything that comes in. But there's certain chemicals that you can ingest and certain drugs that you can take and things like that that will impact the baby. But if you were to just care for the baby, there's no way that baby could learn fear. Because nothing could come in it wouldn't even know what fear was. How could it? Because nothing could come in that could teach it fear. Yeah. So in that place of perfect protection in the placenta, in the womb, that baby is having these rich stages of sleep, learning about God, learning about who they are, all of those kind of things. And then if we as parents would think of our homes as a continuation of that place of protection.
Right.
Where a child could learn from us what godly lifestyle looks like, but not only just from us, but from their dream life. Well, like, think about Solomon. I know he was older, but how did he learn wisdom?
Through a dream.
Through a dream.
Yeah, we miss that so many times. The impartation of the greatest gift of wisdom ever came to him in a dream.
Yeah, exactly. So it's possible.
Yeah.
And God works through our physical bodies. You know, you're in worship, you feel his presence, it comes over you. There's a physical, tangible response.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing wrong with that. That he created our physical bodies. He loves our physical bodies. And so the way that physiologically we respond to our dream life makes so much sense how Solomon could learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Because God comes to him in the midst of his dream, probably in stage 4 of sleep, at the deepest stage, right? Because it's after stage 4 that you rapidly wake up, and then Solomon rapidly wakes up right after it.
Right.
So he's probably in the deepest stage of sleep, and he's in that rapid eye movement place. He's lucid, and he's having this encounter with God, and he's learning something new.
Yeah.
Because God works within our physiology to teach us things.
Yeah. So let's do this, because one of the just very practical things that we need to learn is what are some practical steps or habits or practices that we can have with our kids that will teach them to respect and pay attention to their dreams and learn to understand their dreams?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first one is not to be negative about them.
Yeah.
Right. That's the simple one, because like I said earlier, our initial response is to tell them when they have a scary dream that it doesn't exist, it's not real, or they see something fearful, it's not real. So the first response is for us to understand the spiritual realm, us to have a developed relationship with God, and to be able to coach them in those kind of things, and saying, no, okay, if there's a dark presence in there, you come find me, or you tell it to go, because this is your room. You're my daughter, you're my son, I would give you authority in this room, you tell that thing to go, it'll have to go, it has to listen to you. That's another thing we taught my daughter. Yeah. And when my son is old enough to understand that, we'll teach him the same thing.
Yeah, so teach him to value them.
Yeah, teaching to value them. Yeah, okay. Teaching them the sphere of authority that they have in simple ways. Right? Yeah. This is your room.
Right.
You get to bring your toys into this room. You get to decorate this room how you want to. This is your room, your space. What you don't want to have in here, you can tell it to go. Yeah. What you want to have in here, you can tell it to stay and to come. And I give you permission to do that as your father and as the person overseeing this house. I give you permission to do that. So simple ways of teaching sphere of authority.
Yeah.
And so teaching them that thing, and then making sure you don't do that thing that says, oh, it's not real at all.
Right.
I ask my daughter, hey, what kind of dreams have you had? Did you have any dreams? And one of the things I try and do is not quench their imagination, and let them and play with them. Like I love sitting down with my daughter, and we just built some Legos together, and she always wants me to sit down and play Legos with her. And so I'll play with her. I'll engage that imaginative realm with her, where she's got the monster and I've got the Legos, and we're battling back and forth and having this great time. I want to engage that imaginatory realm and make it a really healthy, safe place for her. So that's another thing, is teaching her that not to be afraid of things, not to turn off that creative space, not to turn off that imaginative space. And then my wife will do things like, because I'm at work during the day, my wife generally stays at home with the kids right now, and she'll foster creativity. She'll have them doing painting, or she'll have things set aside for them to create and things like that. Being able to foster that creative intelligence and those types of things. We pray with my daughter every night.
Yeah,
Every night we
engaging
pray
her
for him.
spirit, keeping her spirit alive.
Yes, yeah, blessing
Yeah.
her spirit, specifically blessing her spirit, specifically blessing her soul to be anchored in the spiritual reality, to be full of God's light. I usually bless her spirit with God's light and her soul with God's peace.
Yeah.
And then her body with growth and health, and her body with his peace as well.
Yeah.
And so I usually do that every night. I'm gonna bless your Savannah, bless you with these things, so that we're actively engaged in that realm. I know we take her. She comes to church with us. We sing together and all of those types of things, and we worship together, and she loves that. And so we try and find those things that she really engages creatively. Like if it's music, we'll put music on. I'll dance with her, so that she's creatively expressing herself. And my son is starting to come into that place too. But I have to learn her tendencies. And so, like I said in our earlier conversation, I knew her tendency was to look towards darkness. Once I understood that tendency, I can start helping coach her. But if I'm not near my children learning their patterns and behaviors, there's no way I'm going to be able to help them develop healthy patterns and behaviors. So I have to be close to them, vulnerable with them, and open with them. I can't do that thing where I shut myself off from them. I have to be engaged with their process and their learning styles and things like that. And that requires time spent on the floor with them playing. And then, that could be 5 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours. But if I'm engaging them intentionally, then I'm creating a healthy, safe place. See, one of the things I remember before I ever had kids or was married or anything, I had this revelation as I dealt with issues in my own heart towards my father, that as a father, my responsibility towards my children was going to be modeling the Father, the Heavenly Father. And if I could do that, then they would be safe and they could grow into a deep relationship with them from an early age. I remember the Lord asked me one time, as I was dealing with a number of anger issues towards my dad, He asked me, if I was your father from birth, how would you be different? And I started thinking about it, and I was going, well, I could think of a bunch of different things, right? Well, I'd probably be less insecure, I'd feel more acceptance, I'd feel more loving, I probably wouldn't struggle with this and this and this. And I realized it was a trick question, because he had been my father from birth. All of that, anything I could identify that would be different has already died on the cross.
Yes.
And so if I can fully step into that soft, caring persona of the Father that's in me and reflect that to my children, how much my children will be able to grow up engaging God and realizing He's safe.
Yeah. Now, so do you have like dream dictionaries? How do you keep track of your children's dreams, and how do you teach them to go back over them? I mean, obviously, Savannah would be more likely that you would do that with.
She would, yeah. And presently, because she's 4, so her dream life is really simple. I was riding on a T-Rex was one of her dreams. And so there's at this point, I think when she gets to be 6 or 7, a little bit older, and her dream life is a little bit richer, then we'll do more intentional recording. Right now, it's just making sure we create that space to talk with her, to engage with her. What kind of dreams did you have? What was it? And then when she'll divulge information, because kids don't always want to divulge. I don't try and press it. Like I don't want to go, well, you tell me now, because then I create a fear response. And I don't want to create a fear response. I say, okay, if she doesn't say, that's fine. And if she says, then I'll say, oh, I don't even need to try and interpret that, although some of them we do. But I'll just say, that sounds like so much fun. What a fun dream. And so celebrate that she actually had a dream, that she's shared it with me, and that she had fun in that dream.
So good.
Creating that kind of value for it. It reminds me of Abraham, Isaac. We were talking about this the other day. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. They celebrated their dreams. They talked about their dreams. Joseph is sharing his dreams. By the time you get to Joseph, he's going to his brothers in the field. He's telling his dad and his brothers around the dinner table. He's like, look at all my dreams. Like you've got this family that has this incredible value for dreams because they experience dreams.
And enough of an understanding of dreams. They were interpreting the dreams. He didn't have to.
Yes, Joseph didn't interpret the dreams. Exactly, his family did.
His family understood them. He just said them.
Yeah, family value, cultural value, developing that whole thing. And so
that's huge.
Creating that space in our house where she feels safe when she has a dream, she can share it with us, and we can celebrate that she shared it with us and that she's having fun and engaging with that and fostering that in the room, or fostering that in our home environment has been absolutely crucial. My wife and I talk all the time about how do we create a peaceful environment that's conducive to family growth. so that our kids, it really is that whole thing that we could be the ceiling for our kids' floor.
Yeah,
our ceiling is their floor.
Yeah,
is really establishing that for them, and so celebrating when they do spiritual things, when they're engaging with God.
Yeah. So beginning to develop a value for the supernatural and understanding authority within the supernatural, engaging their spirit, prayer, blessing them, excited in celebrating the encounters that they have, and teaching them how to respond to the negative encounters.
Yes.
And taking them seriously and not discounting them. I mean, those are keys at that age. And as kids grow, I mean, beginning to develop that process of the dream journal it's really key. And talking about just as family, I mean, you talked about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Joseph, how they, I mean, Abraham shared his encounters with Isaac and probably with Jacob and probably with Joseph, right?
Yeah.
There was this interaction between the generations and celebrating the encounters of God and talking about them and keeping our spiritual life public in the family. There's this cultural thing, and especially in America and I think in Canada, just the Western world, UK would be very similar, of this almost the secrecy or this privatization of religion. And we have to purposefully fight that, especially in our family, because the spiritual world affects everything.
Yes.
And we've got to bring that in. And so providing that place where we share our encounters with God with our kids, and we're teaching them and training them and equipping for them.
Right.
Because if we did this, I mean, if we had a generation that really would raise their kids, I mean, we have these amazing courses that we've been given on how to interpret dreams and how to understand dreams. The reason why we need to teach those courses is because we've never been taught anywhere else.
Right.
And if we had a generation that actually raised our kids to do that, where that was the norm, we wouldn't need the course to teach it because it would already be taught.
Right.
And that's where I desire, I long to see the church get to where the church is raising up a generation where it's just so normal to talk about dreams, to understand dreams, where we don't have to have courses, where everybody's interpreting each other's dreams, and we're not waiting for the gifted person to do it. It's just the normal thing to have that. And then there's certain people, I mean, God always raises up gifted people that infuse something special, the Daniels and the Josephs, that are used in strategic ways. But the culture and the norm for believers is understanding dreams. And it starts with our kids.
Yeah, I agree.
There's so much. I mean, we could keep on going on this forever. There's so much to talk about, creating that culture. And we're going to continue to do this. And we've got a lot of resources to help you. If you haven't checked out Dream Foundations, check that out. And I know it's specifically written to the parents and to the adults and you guys, but you can learn how to take those same principles and apply them to your children, and it will really help them to create a philosophy and an understanding of value for dreams that fosters that in their lives, where it becomes very normal to have dreams, to understand dreams, and to respond to dreams the same way that it was in the Bible, because that's the biblical record. They understood dreams. They valued dreams. They responded to dreams. And so that's who we are as believers. And it's so key. And if you've never taken the courses, our courses, The Art of Hearing God, Understanding Dreams and Visions, and Advanced Workshop on Dreams and Visions, they are so key. We have those available. We have them live. We have them online. You can just go on our website and watch them, or you can come to one of the live courses. I know Josh teaches those all over Canada. We have them available, and we have them in most of the countries. We have them in Europe. We have them happening in Africa. We have them happening in Asia. So they're available most likely somewhere semi-close to where you're at. And we're going to continue to bring you tools that are going to help you on this journey. Thanks so much for joining us in Conversations. It's been great having you. And Josh, thank you so much, man. It has been really good.
It has been awesome.
Yeah, fun stuff. Good.